All right, by popular request, I'm going to show you how to create that lo-fi telephone radio effect in your mixes like this.
I've wasted lines on so many pages, trying to make sense of this soul I once fulfilled inside my chest.
So this is one of those classic effects. It's been used for decades and decades. It never gets old. It never gets cheesy. I kind of joke about it with some of our course members. It's like just throwing this filter effect, this telephone, whatever you want to call it. You can do it on guitars. You can do it on drums, especially on vocals. It never sounds cheesy. It never sounds dated. It just works so often. So I'm going to show you a few ways to do it here. So in the intro of this song, we've obviously got it happening on both a guitar and a vocal track. So we'll start with the guitar. We've got a bit of a big chain here, but really the magic is happening on this EQ. Now you could do this with any stock plugin built in. This is just the Waves REQ. And the starting point of this telephone radio lo-fi effect is just an extreme filter. It's using a high pass filter and a low pass filter to just limit the frequencies that are getting through and being heard. So, let me just go to a fresh setup on this. Let me mute the reverb. Let me mute everything else just so we can hear exactly what this is doing. So you're going to start by just filtering out the low end. So already you kind of have that. Then you also filter out the high end. And now you can get as extreme as you want here. So you can do it like that. You can kind of control the tone. You can have like a lower sounding one. So, for this guitar, I chose something similar like this. And then you can also kind of boost some mid-range if you want it to sound even more kind of pronounced or even more of that telephone effect. So boosting usually around 1K. That'll help the effect kind of cut through the mix a little more and just put it a little more up front. So it's super easy to do, right? I'll go back to the setting I had finally in this mix. I just had some saturation. Really, it's just the guitar track that I duplicated with kind of the rest of the chain that was on, and then I just added this EQ. That's pretty much all that happened here. Now, let's go to the vocals, and it's the same thing here.
I've wasted lines on so many pages.
So this time, instead of like more of a stock EQ, if you have the Waves SSL channel, there's a great preset to start from. It's the Crystalloid Algae filter Vox setting right there. So let me just basically dial that in. I'll disable the rest here. We got some delays and whatnot.
I've wasted lines on so many pages.
So again, let's just start from scratch. Here's the raw vocal.
I've wasted lines on so many pages.
Now I always get rid of the gate on this.
I've wasted lines on so many pages.
So the difference here is that along with the EQ, we're also adding like some pretty heavy compression, which also is part of kind of that lo-fi sound, right? Like really compressed, right? Bad quality, really compressed. That's why it's got, everything's cranked up here. So we've got the high pass filter all the way at 350, the low pass all the way at 3K. So usually I start here and then I'll just kind of dial it in. Usually I want a little more low end.
I've wasted lines on so many pages.
Maybe a little more high end.
I've wasted lines on so many pages.
You can really just customize it.
I've wasted lines on so many pages.
Now after that, I want it to sound a little more distorted, a little more saturated. So I just used the stock Pro Tools plugin, LoFi, to do that. Just with a little bit of distortion here.
I've wasted lines on so many pages.
Crank it up as much as you want. Just wanted to fill it out a bit. Then I just limited it.
I've wasted lines on
because this heavy compression on the SSL channel kind of created some spiky transients.
I've wasted lines
You
on
can see
so
that
many.
right on the first word. And then from there, it's just delay and effects to taste, whatever you want it to sound like.
I've wasted lines on so many pages.
So let's go back to the settings I had here, basically the same.
I've wasted lines on so many pages.
And you can see we've got this effect, it's on the guitar, it's on the vocal in the intro, but we've got it throughout the song too.
Ice and get some sleep. Maybe then I say I've wasted lines on so many pages. Trying to make sense
Kind of a different style of it on this kind of background vocal echo right here.
of pages.
But you can see it's still just kind of an extreme high pass and low pass filter, and then emphasizing 1.5K here.
Pages.
Create some cool texture in the chorus, and even at the end we have a whole section that kind of sounds like that. So you can really do a lot with this and just create movement, not just have one vocal sound or one guitar sound the whole time. Let me show you one other example. So here's a song by the band Dead and Divine. So this whole intro, I just printed down the mix that I had for the intro, and then copied it into a new track, and then again just did a basic filter just like you saw, and this time it's kind of automated, so it actually ends up growing and sounding bigger. Check this out. So that little shift at the end, along with some cymbal swells, some reverse snares and whatnot, kind of creates that sweeping effect out of the telephone effect. So you can really do this on a whole mix, and it sounds great. And we've got a lot of filter vocals in this one as well, but this is a heavier song, so you get sometimes more aggressive. And sometimes what I like to do is put a distortion before the filter effect. So listen to this. So again, here's the raw vocal. So distortion first. This is the Massey THC. It's basically like a guitar distortion pedal. Pretty nasty, pretty fuzzy, but then we filter it with the SSL channel. So this isn't as extreme, 200, and then what's this at? 10K, so not that much of a filter. So in this case, it's like the distortion and a little bit of the filtering that's creating kind of that lo-fi effect. And of course, you could get more extreme with this. You can see how this the distortion adds just a more aggressive texture to the filter effect and the telephone effect for this song. So, I mean, that's kind of it. I don't know what else to show you. You can really use any stock distortion, any stock EQ, any stock limiter, compressor to create this effect. And, basically just to recap, it starts with just using a high and low pass filter and bringing it in, bringing those two filters together and kind of shifting what those numbers are, what those frequencies are, maybe boosting some mid-range to accentuate the effect a little bit more. That's how you get that telephone radio vocal effect. And then the amount of lo-fi that you want to add to it just depends on saturation. You can crank up some saturation. You can put a distortion pedal like I did here. You can really add a lot of aggressive compression, again, with any style of compressor. And there's a lot of different flavors of this kind of simple telephone radio effect that can work in your mix. Now, speaking of aggressive vocals, if you want to figure out how to mix, not the lo-fi version, but the hi-fi version, the full range version of an aggressive upfront screamed vocal track, check out this video here. It's one of my most popular. It'll show you exactly how to dial in your EQ and compression for a screamed lead vocal. All right, thanks for watching. Talk to you later.